Okay, sorry about technical difficulties. We are in Lenox, Alabama. When we got this property, they said, you're so far out in the sticks, they got to pump sunshine. They said, now the moonshine flows freely around Lenox, but the sunshine, they got to pump it in. I haven't seen any moonshine out here. Anybody? We see a lot of beer cans up and down the road. Gee, all the rednecks drive around, throw the beer cans out. Anyway, we left off with Luke chapter 21, verse number 7. They asked him, saying, Master, when shall these things be? It's an interesting concept in the Bible. When there's an important doctrine that is taught, there's always 2 or 3 verses about that topic. So if there's one verse, like when Jesus said to Peter, thou art Peter, and upon this rock I'll build my church, that's the only verse like that. And the Catholic Church has built their entire church on that one verse, and a misunderstanding. They say the church is built on Peter. No, it's not. The church is built on Jesus Christ. He's the rock. Jesus said, you are Petros, a little stone. Upon this rock I'll build my church. But if it was really an important doctrine, it would be in there 3 times. Like, for instance, there's always 2 or 3 verses about a topic that is important. Example, in Deuteronomy 17, it says, at the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses shall somebody be put to death, death sentence. Deuteronomy 19, at the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses, the matter is established. Matthew 18, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word's established. So there are 3 times the Bible tells us there should be 3 times. And there are 3 passages that clearly tell us about the second coming of Christ. Luke 21:7, the disciples said, Lord, when are you coming and what's the sign? Here it is in Matthew 24. As he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came and privately tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? Well, that's pretty clear. Lord, when's this going to happen? And what's the sign we should watch for? Remember, the Jews require a sign. They seek after a sign. The Greeks seek after wisdom. The Jews seek after a sign. So in Matthew 24, he said, when's this going to happen? What's the sign? Mark 13, same thing. When shall these things be? What shall be the sign of thy coming? Luke 21, Master, when shall these things be? What sign shall there be when these things shall come to pass? So for my book I wrote on the topic, What on Earth's About to Happen, for heaven's sake, it's $30 something from our ministry. I put all 3 of those verses, columns, side by side. Matthew, Mark, and Luke. I copied the page, cut them out, taped them together, and began to compare the similarities and differences between these 3 passages. And here they are. Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, at the beginning of each of these, the disciples said, Lord, when are you coming, and what's the sign? And in Matthew, for the next 23 verses, he answers what's going to happen, all the bad stuff. In Mark, for the next 19 verses, and in Luke, for the next 17 verses, which we're going to be talking about today. Then at the end, he answers their question. Down at the last there, he says, I'm coming after the tribulation, when the sun and the moon go dark. How could I read the Bible for 40 years and miss that? It's so obvious. Like, I'm sorry, Lord, I missed it. I was taught as a new Christian the pre-trib rapture, and it darkened my understanding to understand that passage. Okay. At the end, he said, I'm coming after the tribulation. Matthew 24. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. Well, that's a sign everybody ought to see. If the sun goes dark and the moon goes dark, I think people are going to notice something strange with the weather here, right? Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds. Remember when Jesus went up in the clouds in Acts chapter 1? The disciples are standing there gawking at him going up, and 2 angels appeared to him and said, hey, guys, he went up in a cloud, he's coming back in a cloud. Same way. Just like he went up, he's coming back. And here it is. He's coming back, and he shall send his angels, and they shall gather together his elect. That's the rapture. Now, the word rapture is not mentioned in the Bible, never used in the Bible, but it's a Greek word that means to snatch something away. So he's going to rapture them away. Yes, sir.
What is the word elect? Like, what is that? What is that you referring to? The Christians?
They've been chosen, the elect, right? They're saved. And people, I think, take that too far. But he's going to gather his elect, those that accepted him. In Mark 13. But in those days, after that tribulation, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds, and then shall he send his angels and gather together his elect. So you can read the passage again. So the sun and the moon going dark is the sign to watch for. And it's mentioned 10 times in the Bible. It says clearly, after the tribulation, the sun and the moon go dark. And it says clearly in the Bible, before the day of the Lord, the sun and the moon go dark. Like in Joel chapter 2. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. I had confused for 40 years the rapture and the day of the Lord. See, the day of the Lord and the day of Christ are two different days. The day of Christ is a single day, that's the rapture. The day of the Lord's 1,000 years long. And we cover that clearly in my book. And I had confused tribulation with wrath. Tribulation is what the world is going to do to us. And Jesus told the disciples, hey guys, in the world ye shall have tribulation. John chapter 16. But Titus 1:10, ye shall not, my children are not appointed unto wrath. We don't experience the wrath of God. We do experience the tribulation. Yep.
That guy's really asking now. I just paid $2. Will you answer that question?
Pay $2 to, could I please explain Matthew 16:28? When I get done with the Bible study?
Well, or whenever, just you can answer now if you want. He's asked it multiple times, and I just paid to ask it, so he wants you to answer it really bad.
Okay, I'd have to look it up. Matthew 6, I don't know that whole Bible by heart. I know.
For 100, he'll do it right now.
Yeah, for $100, I'll do it right now. Okay.
Yes, go.
For 10,000, yeah, we'll do it right now. 16:28. Verily I say here, there's somebody standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. I think he's talking about Peter, James, and John, who just a few days later saw him, and the angels came down and met with Moses, and Elijah came down and met with him. They got to see the kingdom of God right there. So that's my answer to that one. Okay, so in Acts chapter 2, it says, the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and notable day of the Lord come. So there it is, Acts chapter 1. When he spoke in these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel, which said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner. What does that mean? He's coming back in a cloud, as ye have seen him go into heaven. So the sequence is very simple. There's a time of tribulation. Then the sun and the moon go dark, and then the day of the Lord starts. So we have to define the terms. Tribulation is what the world does to us. Wrath is what God does to the world, and they're not the same. In my book and in my video series on this, whoa, what on earth is about to happen? How much is the whole video series? Do you know?
$100.
$100 for whoa. $100 for the whole video series if you want to get that.
Like 23 hours.
23 hours long. Okay. Anyway. 70th week of Daniel, chapter 9, verse 27. There are several theories of what people think happened. It has 5 parts to it. And we cover all that in my video series, Woe, and in my book. I won't take time for that now. Back to Luke chapter 21. And he said, Take heed that ye be not deceived, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ. And the time draweth near. Go ye not after them. And there have always been people come along like the Jim Joneses and say, oh, follow me. This is the end of the world. Everybody come with me. Go down to Jonestown and we're going to build, drink purple Kool-Aid. There's always been people like that. Draw a crowd after them. He said, don't follow them. And we don't have anybody following me here. We're building a Christian camp and people come here to work. And when they're done, they leave. we're not trying to gather a bunch of followers. We're just trying to get a bunch of folks who want to serve God and build the place and stay as long as you want and leave when you want. It's not a big deal here. Okay. In verse 9. But when you shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by. So they asked him, in verse number 9, and the column on the far right, ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Now in Matthew 24, the parallel passage, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, see that ye be not troubled. For these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. In Mark, same thing. So I lined these columns up and began to notice they are telling the same story from 3 different perspectives, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And you can get that in the book on page, 249. Okay. And he said unto them, nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be earthquakes in divers places. Now, divers, we don't use much in English anymore. It means diverse, different. diversity. There's going to be earthquakes in diverse places, and famines and pestilence and fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven. Someone told me there have been more earthquakes in the last 10 years than there were in the last 100 years before that. Earthquakes are increasing rapidly all over the place. Has anybody ever been in an earthquake? I was in one in California. It's frightening. You feel, what do you do? Yes.
There's actually one a couple months ago in California.
In California. There's just, where do you run from an earthquake? What do you do? Birds will be fine, but that's about it. You know, I can't fly. So, and he said there's going to be earthquakes in diverse places. And sure enough, he mentions it in Matthew and Mark and Luke. And you can look at the verses in the columns here. But before all these things, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you. Jesus is telling his disciples, he's answering their question. Lord, when are you coming and what's the sign we should watch for? Well, guys, they're going to beat you up. They're going to kill you. They're going to deliver you up to the synagogues and put you in prison. You're going to be brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. You're going to go before these things, guys, to be tried, and it's going to be a testimony. It shall turn to you for a testimony. He said, I'm going to let them have you arrested, put in jail, put in prison, beaten, and it's going to be a testimony. He says, guys, I'm going to give you great rewards if you put up with this, and I'm going to use it at their trial for a testimony against them. You're going to be able to say, Lord, I tried to tell that king or that judge or that I tried to explain to him. You're going to be a witness against them. So again, you got the same thing. They shall deliver you up to be afflicted, Matthew said. Take heed to yourselves, Mark said. They shall deliver you up to the councils. You can read those passages. Verse 14. Settle it therefore in your hearts not to meditate before what you shall answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom. When the time comes, you'll know what to say. How many have ever been in one of those spots where all of a sudden you felt like the Lord was telling you what to say at the right time? Like, whoa. Like when the guy asked me, where did God come from in that debate? You know, the 3-on-1. And I gave a 2-minute answer that's got 65 million views. Like, whoa, I got done. Said, man, where'd that come from? That was from you, Lord. Thank you. Where did God come from? Just Google, where did God come from? I can't hold it. Oh, never mind. Okay. I will give you a mouth and wisdom which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay nor resist. They won't be able to talk about you. Verse 16. And ye shall be betrayed both by parents and brethren and kinfolks and friends. And some of you shall they cause to be put to death. Jesus is answering their question. They said, Lord, when are you coming and what's the sign? And he's telling about all the bad stuff going to happen. He said, guys, I'm sorry, they're going to kill some of you. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. So you see the same thing again. Matthew, Mark, Luke, all 3 columns have that. Many false prophets shall arise, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. He said in verse 18, but there shall not an hair of your head perish. In your patience possess ye your souls. We are headed into a time, I just strongly suspect it's going to start next year here in America. It's already happening in many countries around the world. Many countries, their persecution's incredible. You would not believe the Christians, how many Christians are being killed, beheaded in Muslim countries and have been for the last 10 years. It's unreal what they're doing. It's here, folks, and it's coming to America. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Jerusalem is going to be desolated. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out of it, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. So this desolation of the temple, in the book of Daniel, chapter 9, it tells us this desolation takes place in the middle of the tribulation. In the middle of the 7 years, there's going to be a period where the temple is desolate. So what's the middle of 7 years? 3.5. So what he just got done telling them is the first 3.5 years. Then the temple gets desolated. It's in all 3 passages. Matthew 24:15, Mark 13:14, and Luke 21:20. Talks about the desolation of the temple. And then at the end, the desolation of the temple, the desolation. There it is. So that takes place right in the middle between the first and the second half of this tribulation time. Antichrist will break the treaty, and the temple is desolate. So almost all Bible scholars take this 7-year period and break it up into 2 parts, and they are correct. I think that's the way it should go. Verse 22. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And so you see, it's talked about the great distress or the great tribulation. This comes after, right here, and right here, and right here. This comes after the middle of the tribulation. You think it was bad at the first 3.5 years? Wait till the second half comes. Jesus said in Luke 18, verse 8, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? Is there going to be anybody left alive that loves him? And the question is never answered, but I think it's an obvious no, probably not many. Read Luke 18:8 and see what you think. Okay, verse number right there, 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So during the first half of this 7 years, the temple is going to be rebuilt. Then he's going to desolate the temple, and the Gentiles, probably the Muslims, are going to trample down the temple, and they're going to control things until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. 2,300 days later, the temple is desolate. Daniel chapter 8:14 talks about 2,300 days. We'll get into that some other time. Okay, verse 25. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And we see that in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. All 3 of them talk about this time of the sun and the moon. This is the sign. They asked him, Lord, when are you coming? What's the sign? He tells them, after the tribulation, the sun and the moon are going to go dark. The stars are going to fall from heaven. The Son of Man appears in heaven. The tribes of the earth mourn when they see Jesus coming. Oh no, we missed it. All see the Son of Man coming in the clouds. This is not a secret rapture like the Left Behind series. I got it here in the shelf somewhere here. Excellent author. Tim LaHaye he's a great author, but he got the totally wrong doctrine. Teaches the pre-trib rapture. I mean, he'll captivate you with his writing style, that's for sure. And the movies are fabulous. But it's not true. It's not a secret rapture where all of a sudden people see clothes laying around where somebody disappeared on the airplane. It's not that way. Everybody's going to see him. Every eye shall see him. Number 6, he sends the angels with a trumpet. The angels gather the elect immediately after the tribulation, Matthew said. Shall the sun be darkened and the moon shall not give her light. Matthew 24, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And they shall see, all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds. Everybody's going to see it. And he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect. So this takes place after the tribulation. So the angels gather the elect. Let's see, in Mark, we see the same sequence. And in Luke, very similar. But in those days, after the tribulation, the sun shall be darkened and the moon shall not give her light. The sun and the moon going dark is mentioned 10 times in the Bible. The first one's in Isaiah chapter 13. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. In Isaiah 24, it's mentioned again. The moon shall be confounded and the sun ashamed when the Lord of hosts shall reign in Mount Zion. Ezekiel 32. I will cover the heaven and make the stars dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. Joel chapter 2. The day of the Lord is a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. Joel chapter 2, verse 30. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. Joel chapter 3, verse 14. There's multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. Matthew 24, after the tribulation, the sun and the moon go dark. Mark 13, Luke 21, Acts chapter 2. The sun and the moon, sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and notable day of the Lord. Here's the last mention of it right here. People say, Brother Hovind, in the book of Revelation, when are we raptured out of here? Is it chapter 4, verse 1, when the Lord said to John, come up hither? That's what I was taught in the Schofield Reference Edition. The Lord said to John, chapter 4, verse 1, come up hither. See, that's the rapture. No, that's not. That's him calling John up hither to show the future. The rapture takes place in Revelation chapter 6, verse 12. And I beheld when he opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became as black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell to the earth. Which means we're here for the first 5 seals. Let me explain what's going to happen during the first 5 seals. If you read Revelation chapter 6, remember, we're taken out at verse 12. So we're here for the first 11. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals. If you want to get the book of Revelation, the plagues and all that straight in your, just remember STV, like STV, sexually transmitted disease, only this is STV. There are 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 vials. They come in that order, STV. Okay. And the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder. And the 4 beasts said, come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer. That's the first seal. I don't think I understand all that, but that's what happens at the first seal. Second seal. Verse 3. And when he'd opened the second seal, there was a scroll rolled up with 7 seals. In those days, they would take a document, put a glob of wax on it, and stamp it with the king's ring or something like that, so you could tell if it was tampered with. So these were the 7 seals on this scroll. He opens the first one, something happens. Opens the second one, and here's what happens. Verse 4. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. So there's going to be a lot of wars going on. See, most Americans have never lived in a war zone. Some have gone to visit war zones and gone to battle. But you ought to talk to folks who've lived in a country where the war was in their country and came through their neighborhood. It's pretty disruptive. What if there was a war going on in America and they came through Alabama? The enemy troops fighting back and forth. In any war, the civilians suffer more than anybody. Verse number 5. And when it opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the fourth beast say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not wine. Well, a measure is what you can hold in 2 hands. How much can you hold in 2 hands? That's considered a measure of wheat. For a penny. If you know your Bible, a penny was a day's wages. What's a common laborer day's wages, say $8 an hour for 8 hours a day? $65. If the wheat you could hold in your hands cost $65 a day's wages, what's that going to do to the price of bread and tacos and everything? A measure of wheat for a penny. What is this passage telling us? There's going to be famine. People are going to be starving. Food's going to go sky high in price. Sky high. A measure of wheat for a penny. 3 measures of barley for a penny. What do they use barley for? Cook anything with barley?
Soup.
Soup?
Maybe bread.
Maybe bread. Okay. Verse number 6. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, a measure, we did that already. Verse 7. And when he'd opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th beast say, come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and him that sat on him was death. And hell followed with him. All power was given unto them that over the 4th part of the earth to kill with sword, with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. So 1/4 of the world's population is going to be killed. Either with sword, that would be fighting, with hunger, starvation, with death, diseases maybe, and with beasts. The animals are going to go crazy. Hovind theory. Couldn't prove this to anybody, but I just suspect what they've been doing for the last 15 years, spraying the chemtrails, the aluminum oxide in the sky, What's happening to all that aluminum oxide they're spraying in the sky? It slowly comes down to the earth, right? Then where does it go?
Your brain.
The plants soak it up,
And we eat.
and the animals eat the plants, and we eat the plants or the animals, and all that aluminum oxide is getting into the animals' brains and into our brains, which has horrible effects on the nervous system and the brain. They're going to go nuts. The animals are going to go crazy. People are going to be killed with the beasts of the earth. Your house cat, your dog's going to attack you. Just go nuts, go bonkers, crazy. Maybe that's just the Hovind theory. Maybe that's why. We'll see. Don't know. But he warned us something's going to happen. Verse number 9. And when it opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? So all the people that were killed for their faith are going to be saying, Lord, how long are you going to put up with this? And white robes, verse 11, were given unto every one of them. And it was said unto them that they should rest for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should as they were should be fulfilled. He said, guys, relax. It's not over yet. There's a few more people going to be killed. That's what it says, Revelation 6. And then the 6th seal, the moon became blood, and the stars of heaven fell to the earth. So there's a time coming of tribulation, and the sun and the moon going dark is the sign that they asked for at the end of the tribulation. At the end of this whole 7 years. This is called the day of Christ, mentioned 7 times in the Bible, and they're all on the chart. You can get that. After that comes the day of the Lord. It says in Mark, the stars of heaven shall fall, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then they shall see him coming in the clouds. This is the rapture. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds, and send his angels and gather his elect. So the sequence is, after the sun and the moon go dark, the trumpet blows, the sun and the moon go dark, the trumpet blows, we're caught up out of here finally. There'll be signs in the sun and in the moon. Verse number 27. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in cloud with power and great glory. This is the rapture. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, your redemption draweth nigh. How many have heard that song? Lift up your head, your redemption draweth nigh. I have to sit on the floor to sing that low voice. Okay. So that takes place at the end of these 3. Okay, almost done with the chapter here. And he spake to them a parable. Behold the fig tree. Do we have any fig trees growing here? We got some in the greenhouse?
Several. No,
Yeah.
outside.
Outside. And all the trees. When they now shoot forth, ye see and know of your own selves that summer is now nigh at hand. The fig tree is interesting. Anybody know where the first mention of the fig tree is in the Bible? Genesis. What to talk about? Adam and Eve took fig leaves to sew them together and make a. Now, it's interesting. Adam and Eve made aprons out of fig leaves. God made them coats. Is there a difference between a coat and an apron?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think that shows the difference. Man's idea of modesty compared to God's idea of modesty. Go to the beach in Pensacola. You see what some people think of is modest. They don't have enough material on to build a bathing suit for a hamster. Okay. When they now shoot forth, ye see and know your own selves, summer is now nigh at hand. Fig trees are amazing. I had in Pensacola right outside my door, walk out the door and grab the figs off the tree. And I love figs. Fresh figs are awesome. Did you know there are 700 varieties of fig trees?
Oh, my goodness.
And they might have had a common ancestor. Anybody want to guess what it was? An amoeba.
A rock.
You atheists, pay attention. They came from a fig tree. Fig tree. Variations happen within the kind, but it's still the same kind. It's a fig tree. The common fig, the Asian species of flowering plant in the mulberry family known as the common fig. Now, fig trees you can study those the rest of your life. I wish we had time to chase that rabbit. Let me just cover a couple interesting thoughts. Hebrew Bible. The first is the fig is the tree of life, and the second is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Adam and Eve used the leaves of the fig tree to sew garments for themselves after they ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge, whatever that is. and they realized they were naked. The parable of the budding fig tree, told in Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, told by Jesus, this parable about the kingdom of God involves a fig tree, as does the equally brief parable of the barren fig tree. Just Google fig tree and study that for yourself for a long time. We're over time here. Do fig trees bear fruit before leaves? Most trees put out the leaves and then put out the fruit. Fig tree puts out the fruit and then the leaves. Yeah. So when Jesus saw the fig tree with the leaves on it, he assumed, hey, there'd be some fruit. And when he went there and found no figs but leaves only, what did he do? He cursed the tree, and the tree withered up. Some people have all the leaves, like they're good Christians. They wear the clothes, they go to church, they sing the songs, but they don't even bear any fruit at all.
That answers my question of Psalm 1, why it says your fruit you shall bear in season and your leaf shall not wither.
Yep, bear your fruit in due season. Leaf won't wither. It appears was deceptive, the tree. Upon searching its branches, Jesus found nothing but leaves and a mass of pretentious foliage. And many people pretend to be Christians. They look like them, they talk like them, but they're not. So you ought to have the fruit first and then the leaves. That'll preach someplace. Okay, verse number 31. So likewise ye, when ye see these things come to pass, know ye that the kingdom of God is nigh at hand. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. A lot of controversy on that. The preterists will say, see, those disciples, this had to all happen before the disciples died. That's not what it says. But that's what they use as their argument for why Jesus came, why everything happened in 70 AD. This generation, which generation? Well, the ones that see this happen. The ones that are seeing this, the ones that see this happen are going to be the generation that are going to get to see the end of the world. I think it's going to be us, folks. I think we're close. We shall see. Don't know. I'm going to keep on winning souls and keep on, changing oil in my car because I think the Lord may not come for 200 years, but it could be soon. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. God made a lot of promises about his word. His word is sacred and holy. As for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is tried. Psalm 18. Just Google the word of the Lord. And it's in the Bible almost 400 times. The phrase appears, the word of the Lord came to Ezekiel. The word of the Lord came to Jeremiah. The word of the Lord came to Jonah. God takes his word serious, and he's going to preserve it, and he did. And I'm convinced it's in the King James Bible, and the rest of them have some serious problems. We can debate that if you'd like. Okay. Verse 34. Take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unaware. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. This whole planet is going to experience a time of great tribulation coming soon. Verse 34. Watch ye therefore and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all those things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Who's going to get to escape? Well, there's coming a time of great tribulation. We get raptured out at the end, if anybody's still alive, and then comes a time of great wrath in the day of the Lord, when it really gets bad. It's bad enough what the world does to us. Wait till you see what God does to the world. Meanwhile, we're up in the, point to the chart here, we're up in the judgment seat of Christ, and we go to the marriage supper of the Lamb. So we're out of here when it happens. But I covered that in the book. Okay. And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, this is Daniel's vision back in Daniel chapter 2. He saw the image with the head of gold and, chest and arms of silver and the belly and thigh of brass. He saw the feet, part of potter's clay and part of iron. How many toes on the average person? 10, right? So there's going to be 10 kingdoms get together at the end of time and try to make another world empire. This is all in Daniel chapter 2, verse 42. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. I've been praying for a long time, Lord, I would like to be someplace where it's broken. I don't want to be someplace where the kingdom of Antichrist is strong. Right now, I would say it's very difficult to be a Christian in countries like North Korea. Right? It's very difficult to be a Christian and serve God in Iraq. or Iran. Very difficult. America's pretty easy to be a Christian. Other countries, it's not very easy. I think maybe, I'm hoping Lennox is a place where it's partly broken and the kingdom just can't quite get control around here. We'll see. So in the daytime, he was in the temple, teaching in the temple. At night, he went out and abode in the mount that is called the Mount of Olives. And all the people came early in the morning to hear him in the temple, came early in the morning to him in the temple for to hear him. So they traveled from the Mount of Olives to Jerusalem, back and forth about 2 miles. At the end, it's about from here to a little bit past downtown Lennox. So he was on the Mount of Olives, and he'd go out there to sleep, and then to the Mount of Olives to sleep, and go to Jerusalem to preach, and they went and hear him every morning. Okay, any questions real quick on Luke chapter 21? Yes.
I was looking at the conversations going on during Bible study. There was a gentleman several different times asked if we would remember his father in prayer. They didn't think that he was going to make it much longer. And if we remember him in prayer, just caught my attention.
Whenever somebody I know has a friend or father or relative or somebody who dies, I say, I'm so sorry to hear of your loss, but you might want to read Isaiah 57:1. Isaiah 57:1 will be a comfort. If you have a loved one that dies, those that die now are better off than those that have to face what's coming. Isaiah 57:1. Okay.
There was another person there by the name of Rosemary.
Talk louder.
There's somebody named Rosemary.
Okay.
They said that they wondering what kind of Bible to get. They want to change their life, so they're wondering what kind of Bible to get.
Well, I have for years, 51 years, been a Christian. Yesterday was my birthday. The King James Bible, King James didn't do it. He just paid for it. He didn't want his name on it. It was called the Authorized Version for a long time. Today we call it the King James, but because he's dead and you can't stop it. But he paid 56 men to spend 7 years making the King James, the Authorized Version. We sell the Henry Morris Study Bible, which is the King James Bible with Henry Morris's footnotes at the bottom. And they are very, very helpful, his footnotes and explanatory stuff. So what is it, $70 for a brand new Henry Morris Defender Study Bible? Yes. Excellent. It's kind of expensive, but I've worn out several. They're on the shelf up there. Love it. Okay. Other questions? Steve, any I should take from there?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. We'll be in Luke chapter 22 tomorrow, and then Wednesday, Whack an Atheist. I've been working on that one already. I'm excited about whacking this. Some people they need to be whacked. You know what I'm talking about? Yes, ma'am.
Did you do the birthday song?
Where's
Not here.
She's right there.
Are you the birthday girl?
Oh, that's Rachel.
Let's see.
We thought it is tomorrow.
Do any of the Semencha family, all you 12 kids, want to come up and tell your testimony? You leaving tomorrow. You want to tell how you liked it here? You encourage people to come to Dinosaur Adventureland. Anybody want to share their mom?
Daniel, Joey.
Cindy, give him that chair, please. Who's going to come? Come on, share your testimony. Let's go a little faster. Let's go.
Tell them what you did if you're not coming up. Are you coming up?
Let's go.
Tomorrow.
Cindy,
They
I need that chair.
not coming.
It's his birthday too.
His birthday too today?
Yeah.
And you worked all day. And you worked all day. Welcome to my world. All right, who's going to come up and share their testimony? Brother, you want to tell about who you are on your birthday, get to become world famous here? Okay. How long you been here?
8 days.
8 days. All right. Been working like a trooper, man. You've been a blessing. All right. Tell them who you are and become world famous here. Welcome to YouTube world.
Hello. My name is Yue Zhang. I'm from Fresno, California.
And what heritage? What nationality?
I am Hmong.
Hmong.
Yep.
All right. So you're Hmong friends around here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How you like Dinosaur Adventureland?
I love it.
And is this a cult?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so either, and I lived here I started it.
Yeah, my family thought it was one too.
They thought you were going to a cult?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how to stop that rumor, but I think they're just jealous that we have a lot of fun around here and get stuff done, win souls.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, encourage all your people, all your friends and stuff to come visit us at Dinosaur Adventureland and bring a hammer.
They should come. That's great.
Okay, great. Thank you, brother. Get back to work. Okay. All right. Which one of you guys is going to say? Okay. Are you the oldest?
No, I'm second oldest.
Second oldest out of how many?
Out of 12.
12.
Yeah.
Ukrainian family. All right. And they've been, how long? You guys been here for what?
We've been here for a week now.
A week?
Yes.
You were just going to come for a day, right?
Yeah, we were actually going to come here for half a day for just
Drove your motorhome in and said,
for the
This is cool.
tour. Yeah. And we ended up doing like a bunch of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finally leaving tomorrow. And Rachel turns 11 today.
Yep.
Tomorrow. I was 11 for a whole year. Go ahead.
It's been a great experience so far. Those not expecting definitely what we saw here. The tour is actually amazing. If you guys come down here, you're gonna have a blast with Dr. Hoven. He takes you on the real tour, and I'm gonna tell you, it's pretty fun. It's really surreal. There's that certificate you would get as well, and definitely a lot of things that you can learn here, and they can use your help out here as well because there's plenty of work out here that could be done. So yeah, if you guys have a chance to, come by and enjoy your time here.
We add stuff all the time. We just never get wild ideas at 2 a.m. Like, hey,
you.
yeah. Hey, that'll work. Yeah, let's do that. Thank you so much. And let's sing happy birthday to Rachel, Dinosaur Adventureland birthday song. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is your birthday song. It isn't very long. Happy birthday, Rachel. Oh, and happy birthday, brother. And we have cake and ice cream up at the kitchen, I understand. All right. All in favor of cake and ice cream, say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes are above the nose. Let's go. We won the vote. Okay. See you tomorrow. Bye.